Millionaire and mistress check into a hotel. Pregnant wife pretends to be a cleaner and secretly. Steam rose from the bustling streets of Manhattan on a humid summer evening as an elegant black limousine pulled up to the grand entrance of the Ritz-Carlton. A confident millionaire, Michael Sanchez, stepped out arm in arm with a dazzling woman, a woman who was not his pregnant wife. Their hushed whispers and intimate smiles spoke of dangerous secrets. Nearby, a trembling figure in a maid's uniform watched from behind a potted palm tree. She was Amelia, Michael's 6 months pregnant wife, determined to unmask his betrayal. Within minutes, she would steal into the lover's opulent suite, hide a covert camera, and set in motion a chain of events that would shake all their lives forever. Manhattan at night was a mosaic of neon lights and constant motion, a city that refused to sleep. In a well-appointed penthouse on the Upper East Side, overlooking Central Park, Amelia Sanchez paced the length of her living room. She was 6 months pregnant, her delicate form increasingly weighed down by the child. She carried a child conceived in what she believed to be a stable and loving marriage. Tonight, however, her once blissful life felt as hollow as the echo of her anxious footsteps against the polished floor. Her husband, Michael Sanchez, had been absent for more nights than she cared to admit. Michael was a self-made millionaire whose name graced the financial pages for his meteoric rise in real estate and his high-profile investments around New York City. He was often described in magazines as a visionary, a risk-taker, or the Latin tycoon of Manhattan. Now, he owned stakes in properties near the Empire State Building, had a half-finished project overlooking Times Square, and was even rumored to be in talks to invest in a luxury development near the Metropolitan Museum of Art. If you drove through Manhattan long enough, you'd almost certainly pass one of his holdings. Yet, for all his outward charm and success, the intimacy between him and Amelia had grown cold. She couldn't pinpoint precisely when the shift began, but over the past few months, her husband's late returns home had become routine. He claimed these absences were due to business meetings with overseas investors or urgent site inspections. His phone was always filled with hushed conversations, cut short the moment she entered the room. The final straw came a week earlier, when a close friend confided that she had spotted Michael having an intimate dinner at Per C, a renowned Michelin-starred restaurant in Columbus Circle, with a woman who most certainly wasn't Amelia. "Are you absolutely sure?" Amelia had asked her friend, hands shaking around a mug of chamomile tea. "I wish I wasn't," her friend had replied, lowering her eyes, "but I was only a few tables away." They were laughing, holding hands, very, very close. The friend mentioned a name, Kiera McAllister, a social media influencer who had been making waves with her lavish fashion hauls and luxurious lifestyle. If rumors were to be believed, Kiera's ambitious climb into the upper echelons of New York society was greased by wealthy benefactors. Amelia had tried to dismiss it as gossip. She told herself that Michael was too shrewd to risk his marriage or reputation, especially with a baby on the way. But the seeds of doubt took firm root in her heart. Night after night, she confronted Michael with gentle questions, which escalated into more heated demands for explanations. Each time, he deftly deflected her concerns, insisting that she was overthinking things. "I'm doing everything to secure our future, Amelia," he would say. "I'm working myself ragged for this family. Can you please trust me?" She always ended up nodding, not wanting to be the distrustful wife, not wanting to alienate the man who had once made her feel like the center of his universe. But tonight, Amelia felt more certain than ever that something was terribly wrong. A charge on their joint credit card showed Michael had purchased a designer handbag, an extremely expensive one. She knew it wasn't for her, No gift had arrived to surprise her. There was no occasion he might be commemorating on her behalf. Her heart pounded in her chest, and tears stung her eyes as she realized that she must finally learn the truth. She had called Michael earlier in the evening, only to be forwarded to voicemail. Moments later, she received a text, "Sorry, in a meeting. We'll be back late. Don't wait up." Of course, these cryptic lines hardly eased her worry. Every minute that ticked by only fueled her desperation. If there was another woman, if her husband was deceiving her, she had to know. She refused to be left in the dark like a trusting fool. During the wee hours of the morning, Amelia sat with her laptop open, scanning social media. She found Kiera McAllister's Instagram page an endless parade of glamorous dresses, plush hotel lounges, and exotic getaways. She noticed that Kiera often tagged herself in luxury hotspots that Michael patronized, including the Ritz-Carlton in Midtown Manhattan. Then she saw it. Kiera's most recent story featured a boomerang of a hotel suite's skyline view, posted just hours ago. The location was unmistakable. The Ritz-Carlton near Central Park. The same swirling patterns on the wallpaper, the same gold embellishments. Amelia's pulse quickened. Could it be a coincidence that Michael was busy tonight while Kiera flaunted a stay at the Ritz? She couldn't ignore her gut feeling any longer. Her mind raced as she reached for her phone. She called Naomi Collins, an old friend from college who had spent several years as a private investigator before transitioning into corporate security consulting. "Amelia?" Naomi's voice was groggy, laced with concern. "It's almost 2 a.m. Is everything okay?" Amelia swallowed against the lump in her throat, her words trembling. "I need your expertise. I think Michael is cheating on me. I need proof." Naomi didn't hesitate, though her voice turned serious. "I can help you, but you have to think this through. Are you sure you want to go down this path?" "Yes," Amelia whispered, tears glistening. "I need to protect myself and my baby. If he's really doing this, I want him to face the consequences." Naomi exhaled. "All right, come by tomorrow and I'll give you some discreet equipment. But be careful. Surveillance can be risky." Amelia nodded, even though Naomi couldn't see her. She ended the call, anxiety coiling within her. She was a gentle soul by nature, but the potential betrayal had ignited a fierce determination she never knew she possessed. That night, sleep came sparingly, filled with nightmares of Michael and Kiera laughing at her behind her back. Every so often, she jolted awake, tears staining her pillow, her palm resting protectively over her burgeoning belly. This child would come into a world that was already unraveling at the seams. The thought terrified her. The next morning, Amelia headed downtown to Naomi's apartment. The building was a nondescript brownstone on a quiet side street, far from the typical bustle of tourist spots. Naomi buzzed her in, greeting her at the door in yoga pants and a ponytail. Her living room was cluttered with files and electronic gadgets, remnants of her investigative days. "I assume you have a plan?" Naomi asked, placing a comforting hand on Amelia's shoulder. Amelia inhaled shakily. "If Michael and Kiera are at the Ritz-Carlton, the first want to see if they'll check in again soon. Michael seems to have developed a routine. If I can catch him in the act with Kiera, it'll be all the proof I need." Naomi nodded. "All right. I have some hidden cameras you can plant. They're disguised as ordinary items, pens, phone chargers, even air fresheners. You'll want something small that you can leave behind without drawing suspicion." She opened a metal case, revealing an array of covert devices. One was a tiny camera integrated into what looked like a simple black ballpoint pen. It recorded in HD and was motion activated. Naomi explained how to retrieve the footage later by connecting it to a laptop. Amelia picked up the pen, her hand trembling. "This should do. But how do I even get into their suite?" Naomi pursed her lips. You mentioned he's staying at the Ritz-Carlton. If that's the case, you'll need an excuse to enter. Housekeeping is the easiest route, but it's risky. One slip up and you could be arrested. Worse, Michael might catch you in the act. Amelia closed her eyes, picturing the plush corridors of that hotel, the staff in immaculate uniforms, the sense of being an intruder in a realm that wasn't her own. Yet her resolve stayed strong. I'll figure it out, she murmured. I have to know. I won't let him gaslight me any longer. Naomi handed her the pen, along with a small listening device disguised as a key fob. Use this if you need audio backups. It can record continuously for up to 4 hours. But be careful. And if anything goes wrong, call me right away. Amelia embraced her friend. Thank you. I can't do this alone. Naomi looked at her with a mixture of sadness and admiration. You're stronger than you think, Amelia. Just promise me you'll be safe. With that, Amelia tucked the gadgets into her purse and left, her heart pounding from a mixture of fear and determination. She knew she was stepping over an invisible line, spying on her own husband. Yet heartbreak had hardened her sense of right and wrong. If Michael was indeed unfaithful, she wanted irrefutable proof. 2 days passed without incident, though Amelia's anxiety soared. Michael stayed out late each night, sending only clipped text messages about meeting a new investor from Dubai or grabbing a late dinner with the board. Amelia observed Kiera's social media like a hawk. Finally, on a rainy Friday evening, she noticed a suspicious clue. Kiera posted a short video from inside a lavish elevator, golden mirrors and plush carpeting that she recognized from the Ritz-Carlton. The video ended with the cryptic caption, "Another night in paradise." Enough was enough. Amelia decided to act. She stored the pen camera and the audio key fob in a small bag and drove to the hotel, her hands tight on the steering wheel. The pregnancy bump restricted her movements slightly, and each flutter from her unborn child felt like a plea for justice. The city lights gleamed across the wet pavement as she arrived at the grand facade of the Ritz-Carlton, its doorman sheltering guests under broad black umbrellas. She parked in a nearby garage and hurried across the glistening sidewalk, raindrops pelting her coat. Her plan was simple but dangerous. She would pose as housekeeping staff, slip into Michael and Kiera's suite, and plant the pen camera in a discreet corner. Then she'd wait long enough to record anything incriminating. Amelia's heart hammered as she entered the lobby. The opulent space was adorned with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and hushed conversations in various languages. She walked directly into a bathroom near the conference center, where she hastily changed into a navy blue housekeeping uniform she'd procured from a uniform supply store. It was a knockoff, far from perfect, but hopefully close enough to pass a quick glance. Breathing rapidly, she checked her reflection in the mirror. Her face looked pale, her eyes wide. The name tag she'd purchased read Maria. It was a tiny deception, but it felt massive in the context of what she was about to do. Stepping out of the bathroom, she held a prop housekeeping cart she'd borrowed from a friend who once worked in the service industry. Keeping her head down, she approached an elevator reserved for staff. A few real staff members eyed her curiously, but no one challenged her. Fortunately, the Ritz-Carlton was large enough and busy enough that a new face wasn't an immediate red flag. On the ride up to the 24th floor, she tried to steady her breathing. She knew Michael's credit card statements indicated that he frequently booked Suite 2409, a luxurious corner space with a view of Central Park. She prayed that this was the same suite Kiera had posted about. If her hunch was wrong, the entire mission would crumble. She navigated the corridor, lined with plush red carpeting, scanning the room numbers until she found 2409. She pressed her ear to the door. No sound. If Michael and Kiera were inside, they might be asleep or otherwise occupied. Amelia felt her stomach coil with dread. She had a passkey, stolen from a housekeeping friend who had once done contract work here, but there was no guarantee it would work, or that alarms wouldn't go off. Her hand trembled as she slid the key into the electronic lock. A small click, followed by a green light. Relief flooded her, even if the next step filled her with terror. She eased the door open and slipped inside, softly shutting it behind her. The suite was every bit as luxurious as she'd imagined. A grand foyer led to a spacious living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the shimmering expanse of Central Park's evening lights. The air smelled faintly of roses and perfume, and a half-empty bottle of vintage champagne sat on a marble table. Pillows lay scattered on the plush couch. An expensive purse, likely belonging to Kiera, sat on a nearby chair. Amelia's chest felt tight. Evidence of her husband's betrayal was everywhere, but she needed incontrovertible proof. She quickly surveyed the living area for a good hiding spot, settling on a decorative vase set atop a sideboard. She carefully removed the pen camera from her bag, activated it, and nestled it behind the vase so that the lens had a clear vantage point of the couch and much of the room. Next, she took out the audio key fob, flipping the small switch to start recording. She tucked it under a cushion on a nearby chair, praying it would stay hidden. The plan was to retrieve it later, after capturing enough evidence. Just then, a muffled sound came from the bedroom, footsteps. Amelia's heart jumped into her throat. She glanced frantically for a hiding spot. Eyeing the slightly parted curtains, she dashed behind them, pressing her back to the window. The thick folds of fabric offered scant coverage, but it was better than nothing. She tried not to breathe as the bedroom door swung open and the lights in the living room flicked on. She heard the soft padding of footsteps on carpet, followed by a familiar voice that made her heart twist in anguish. "Michael." "Where did I put my phone?" Michael muttered. "It must be here somewhere." Then another voice, sultry and playful. "You're always losing stuff." The voice belonged to Kiera, an edge of amusement coloring her tone. "Don't be too long. We've got the night ahead of us." Amelia squeezed her eyes shut, tears threatening to fall. She could only imagine the scene mere feet away, her husband with another woman, their closeness, the tenderness that once belonged to Amelia alone. The hush was punctuated by the rustling of fabric. She could practically feel the tension in the room. Finally, Michael's exasperated sigh. "It's not here. Must have left it in the car." His voice was closer to the door now. "I'll go grab it." Kiera hummed non-committally. "All right, but hurry. I was just getting in the mood." Michael chuckled softly, and Amelia's heart constricted with a sorrow so deep it felt physical. She heard the suite door open and close, then silence, except for her own pounding heartbeat. Moments later, Kiera's phone buzzed. She spoke in hushed tones, presumably answering a call or a text, wandering back into the bedroom. Amelia dared to peek out from behind the curtains. The living room was momentarily clear. She had only seconds before Kiera returned or housekeeping came by. Gathering her courage, Amelia slipped from her hiding place, quietly opened the suite's door, and exited into the hallway with the cart. She walked briskly toward the service elevator, not daring to look back. Her entire body was shaking when she finally reached the staff bathroom again. She discarded the uniform, stuffed it into a large bag, and hurried out of the hotel. The encounter with Michael, so painfully close, had rattled her to the core, but she had done it. The camera and audio device were planted. Now, she just had to wait for the evidence that would confirm her suspicions beyond doubt. Back in her car, Amelia parked near a quiet side street to catch her breath. Rain pelted the windshield, shimmering under the streetlights. She could feel her unborn baby moving, as though reacting to her own tumultuous emotions. Gently, she rubbed her belly and whispered, "I'm so sorry, little one. I wish it didn't have to be like this." She contemplated returning home, but she realized she couldn't relax while crucial evidence was being gathered a few stories above her in the Ritz-Carlton. Instead, she contacted Naomi. "I did it," she whispered into the phone. "The camera's in place, and so is the audio device." Naomi let out a low whistle. "Brave, but also reckless. You're sure you got out without being seen?" "As sure as I can be," Amelia said, her voice unsteady. "Michael almost caught me. He came into the room, looking for his phone. I had to hide behind the curtains." Naomi's sharp intake of breath signaled her alarm. "Amelia, be careful. If anything had gone wrong—" "I know," Amelia cut in, tears choking her voice. "But it's done now. I'll retrieve the camera tomorrow, once I'm sure they're gone. I can't rest until I have proof." Naomi's tone softened. "All right, keep me updated. And please, stay safe. Stress isn't good for you or the baby." Amelia ended the call, her mind awash with turmoil. She slipped into a diner nearby, nursing a mug of decaf coffee. Hours crawled by. She tried distracting herself with newspapers and the chatter of late-night patrons. Nothing could quiet the pounding in her chest or the tidal wave of conflicting emotions swirling in her head: heartbreak, anger, disbelief, and a strange sense of liberation that she was finally confronting the truth. Shortly after dawn, she returned to her penthouse. Michael was nowhere to be found, which didn't surprise her. She crept into the master bedroom, sank onto the bed, and stared at the empty space that once held so much love. Memory after memory replayed late-night movie marathons, Sunday brunches in pajamas, the morning he surprised her with a ring and asked her to share his dream. She hated how those cherished images now felt tainted by the reality of his duplicity. She must have drifted off, because the next thing she knew, the morning sun was streaming through the windows, and her phone buzzed loudly on the nightstand. She stirred, her eyes gritty from lack of real sleep. She read a text from Michael: "Busy day. Meetings non-stop. Will be home late. Take care of yourself." Anger flared. Was this his version of an explanation? Did he expect her to continue living in ignorance? She rose from bed, took a shower, and prepared herself for the next phase of her plan, retrieving the devices from the Ritz-Carlton. A part of her dreaded what she might find on those recordings, but she also felt an odd sense of relief that her suspicions would soon be confirmed or disproven. Mid-afternoon found Amelia entering the Ritz-Carlton again, once more with the contrived housekeeping cart and uniform. She would blend in if no one bothered to question her identity, but any confrontation could blow her cover. Taking a deep breath, she approached suite 2409. She pressed her ear against the door. Silence. No sign of Michael or Kiera. Perhaps they had checked out, or were simply gone for the day. Slowly, she slid the housekeeping passkey into the lock. The green light blinked, and the door clicked open. Each second felt like an eternity as she slipped inside, praying the suite was empty. It was. She exhaled in relief. The bed was made, suggesting housekeeping had already been in. Panic seized her momentarily. What if housekeeping had removed her devices? She rushed to the sideboard in the living room. The decorative vase was still there, but the pen camera was missing. Anxiety tightened her chest, until she saw it had merely fallen behind the vase onto a lower ledge. Nearly out of sight, she grabbed it quickly, her fingers trembling. Next, she retrieved the audio key fob from beneath the chair cushion. The fob's small indicator light was off, but that was normal once the battery died. She tucked everything into her bag. Mission accomplished. She did a quick glance around the suite to make sure she'd left no trace. Satisfied, she hurried out, returning the cart and uniform to the staff restroom before leaving the hotel altogether. In the safety of her car, she leaned her forehead against the steering wheel, relief mingling with apprehension about the next step, listening to and watching whatever the devices had captured. A swirl of emotions battered her, fear of heartbreak, desire for closure, and an undercurrent of rage that she even had to go to these lengths. She decided she couldn't face the footage alone in the penthouse she shared with Michael. Instead, she drove to Naomi's place, texting ahead that she was on her way. Naomi's quiet brownstone offered a sanctuary. When she arrived, Naomi ushered her into a spare bedroom-turned office, replete with monitors and cables. "Let's do this," Naomi said gently, setting up her laptop and connecting the pen camera first. Amelia perched on the edge of a worn leather chair, her pulse pounding in her ears. As the footage began to play, the first few minutes showed only an empty room. But soon Michael and Kiera entered, talking in subdued voices. Amelia's stomach clenched when she saw them enter hand in hand. They popped open a bottle of champagne, toasting to something she couldn't quite make out on the audio. Then, heartbreakingly, Michael said, "To our future and finally being free from all that baggage." He raised his glass, smiling at Kiera. Amelia felt tears welling up. She watched as they settled on the couch, Michael pulling Kiera into a tender embrace. Their conversation ranged from business deals to mocking remarks about Amelia's clinginess. At one point, Kiera asked, "When are you going to tell her it's over?" And Michael shrugged, a casual cruelty in the gesture. "Soon. Let her have the baby. Then, well, we'll see." Tears slipped down Amelia's cheeks. Naomi paused the video, placing a reassuring hand on her friend's shoulder. "Amelia, I'm so sorry you have to see this." But Amelia shook her head. "No, let it keep playing. I need to see everything." They continued watching as the camera recorded hours of damning evidence: laughter, flirting, kisses. A wave of nausea struck Amelia at how callously Michael disregarded the woman who carried his child. It was the final confirmation she needed that this wasn't just a lapse in judgment. It was a complete betrayal. Next came the audio from the key fob. The sound was a bit muffled, but the content was explosive. Kiera bragged about how she planned to leverage her relationship with Michael to land brand deals and a high-profile modeling contract. Michael, for his part, bragged about a new real estate deal near the Metropolitan Museum of Art that would make him filthy rich. He gloated, "Amelia will get her share of money, sure, but the real fun—" He paused, chuckling. "The real fun is what I'll have with you." Hurt rippled across Amelia's face. She removed her glasses to wipe away tears. Naomi paused the recording again, giving Amelia time to breathe. The entire ordeal had taken less than 2 hours to watch, but it felt like an eternity, an unrelenting assault on her heart. When the final clip ended, Amelia sat there, staring blankly at the screen. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Naomi closed the laptop gently. "You have more than enough evidence," Naomi said quietly. "What's your next move?" Amelia exhaled slowly, bitterness contorting her features. "I could confront him directly, or I could take legal action. But there's something else." He's scheduled to host a gala in 2 weeks, a big event for his new property launch on the Upper East Side. Everybody will be there: investors, media, friends, celebrities. He's been bragging about how it's going to solidify his reputation as an untouchable figure in New York's real estate scene. Naomi's eyes widened in realization. "You're thinking of exposing him publicly?" Amelia hesitated. "I'm not usually vindictive, but he's shown me no mercy. He's not just cheating, he's humiliating me, planning to discard me once the baby is born. I need to ensure he doesn't escape the consequences." Naomi nodded solemnly. "If you're set on this, I'll help you. But you have to be careful. A public spectacle could get messy." Amelia's gaze hardened. "Messy or not, I won't let him get away with this." During the next 2 weeks, Amelia moved like a woman possessed. She quietly hired a divorce lawyer, initiating the process without alerting Michael. The lawyer advised her to gather financial records, proof of infidelity, and any business documents that might highlight Michael's potential liabilities. With Naomi's assistance, she obtained copies of suspicious bank statements that suggested Michael had been moving funds into an offshore account likely to lavish Kiera with gifts or to stash money away in preparation for leaving Amelia. All the while, Michael continued to come home late, spinning excuses about out-of-town developers or emergency site inspections. He barely acknowledged Amelia's pregnancy, though he sometimes placed a gentle hand on her belly as if trying to assuage his guilt. The gesture made Amelia's skin crawl. She feigned acceptance, careful not to let him suspect she knew everything. Meanwhile, the upcoming gala for Michael's new property launch loomed large on every social calendar in Manhattan. It was scheduled at a newly renovated Art Deco venue in Midtown, an event Michael had promised would be the talk of the city. Amelia and Michael had even posed for promotional photos weeks earlier, which circulated on real estate blogs and social media. Despite his affair, Michael still clung to the public image of a happily married man expecting his first child, a narrative sure to enchant potential investors. Kiera was set to attend as well, though her presence was not formally announced. She boasted on her Instagram that she had a big surprise coming at a major event. Amelia suspected Kiera wanted to finally flaunt the affair publicly, or maybe orchestrate some dramatic reveal about her ongoing relationship with Michael. But Kiera had no idea that Amelia was already one step ahead. The real drama was going to be orchestrated by the scorned wife. The day of the gala arrived. The venue was awash in spotlights, luxury cars pulling up to a red carpet. The who's who of Manhattan's elite sauntered into the opulent hall. Investors, celebrities, socialites, and local politicians exchanged polite air kisses and handshakes. Cameras flashed, journalists seeking scoops for tabloids and business columns alike. Sleek serving staff circulated with champagne flutes and hors d'oeuvre, the tinkling of piano music providing a genteel backdrop. Amelia, dressed in a form-fitting midnight blue maternity gown, arrived fashionably late. She stepped out of a black sedan and paused on the red carpet, letting the paparazzi capture her resplendent but subtly grim expression. If Michael was already inside, she wanted every eye on her entry. Heads turned at the sight of the pregnant wife of Michael Sanchez, whose clothing choices exuded both elegance and quiet defiance. Her heart hammered as she entered the grand foyer, an intricately designed room with gold filigree and vaulted ceilings reminiscent of the 1920s. The chatter of the crowd filled the air. There, near the stage, stood Michael in a bespoke tuxedo, schmoozing with a cluster of VIP guests. Kiera, clad in a red designer gown that left little to the imagination, was stationed a short distance away, batting her eyelashes at the wealthy. Amelia noticed them exchanging furtive glances, a covert language of desire and secrets. Michael locked eyes with Amelia as she approached, a flash of alarm in his expression. He quickly excused himself from his conversation. "You're here," he said, feigning delight, leaning in to kiss her cheek. Amelia let him, though her stomach recoiled. She saw Kiera watching from the corner of her vision, a smirk playing on her glossy lips. "Of course I'm here," Amelia responded smoothly, controlling the tremor in her voice. "I wouldn't miss your big night. You look stunning," he said, placing a hand on her swollen belly. "How are you feeling?" She forced a smile. "I'm feeling quite ready for a big reveal." Confusion flickered across his eyes. A reveal? She merely gave him a cryptic nod, then excused herself to greet other guests. The event coordinator soon summoned Michael to the stage, where he was expected to deliver a speech unveiling his ambitious new development on the Upper East Side. Amelia mingled through the crowd, waiting for the right moment. She spotted Naomi, who was inconspicuously positioned near the AV booth. They exchanged a slight nod. Everything was set. Lights dimmed and a hush fell over the crowd. Michael stood on stage, a massive LED screen behind him, displaying architectural renderings of his new property. He exuded confidence, arms spread wide, voice booming through the microphone. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot express how thrilled I am to share with you this groundbreaking development, a project that will reshape Manhattan's skyline and create a new standard of luxury living. Tonight, we stand on the cusp of history." Amelia waited in the wings, her heart thumping painfully against her ribcage. Kiera stood near the front row, her arms folded, lips curled in a half-smile. It was a moment of pure theatre, the glamorous mistress waiting to bask in Michael's triumph, the unsuspecting guests applauding with admiration, and the betrayed wife holding the ultimate weapon. Michael segued into the final part of his speech. "This project means more than money. It's about legacy. It's about future generations." He glanced pointedly at Amelia, or perhaps at her baby bump. The crowd cooed in polite approval. That was Amelia's cue. She stepped onto the stage, taking the second microphone. The coordinator had left on a stand. Michael's expression faltered, confusion etched on his features. The audience buzzed quietly, sensing something unscripted was happening. Kiera's eyes narrowed, a subtle panic in her posture. "Michael," Amelia began, voice clear in the hush, "I want to personally congratulate you on this development. But since you mentioned legacy, I believe the public should know the full story of who you really are." Her pulse thundered in her ears. Michael's jaw tightened, a forced laugh escaping his lips. "Amelia, darling, this is hardly the time or place. I disagree," she countered, her tone steady. "There's no better time than right now, in front of all these people, to show them the man behind the curtain." She glanced at Naomi. Right on cue, the massive LED screen behind them flickered, the architectural renderings replaced by the covert video footage from the Ritz-Carlton suite. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Before anyone could process what was happening, the speakers broadcast an audio snippet of Michael's voice. "Let her have the baby. Then, well, we'll see." The visuals cut to him and Kiera in a tight embrace, popping champagne, making disparaging remarks about Amelia. Shock and horror erupted in the audience. Michael spun around, horror-stricken. He lunged toward the AV booth, shouting at the technicians to shut it down. But Naomi had locked the system in a loop. For a full minute, the crowd bore witness to Michael and Kiera's passionate betrayal and heartless conversations. Cameras flashed wildly, journalists stumbling over themselves to record every scandalous second. Kiera turned deathly pale. She tried to slip away, but the mob of photographers crowded her, yelling questions. Michael's supporters and potential investors stood in stunned silence, some of them cursing or muttering that their trust had been violated. A few even stormed toward the exits, furious at the fiasco. Others whipped out their phones to film the meltdown in real time. As the footage ended, Amelia dropped her microphone, tears threatening to spill, but not from weakness. They were tears of justice being served. She stepped off the stage, pushing past the crowd. A wave of claps and murmurs rippled after her, some in awe of her courage, some in pity, some in sheer disbelief. Michael leaped off the platform, frantic to salvage the wreckage of his public image. "Stop filming," he roared, chasing after Amelia. "Amelia, wait!" She turned to face him, her expression resolute. "No, Michael. I will not wait. Not anymore." Kiera, besieged by reporters, cried out, "She set us up. She's the one who this is insane." But few sympathized with her plight. She had flaunted her affair too brazenly. Now the consequences were raining down. Police officers and security guards stepped in to maintain order, hustling the press away. Naomi, in the midst of the chaos, gave Amelia a tight hug and guided her outside to a waiting car. Amelia's heart pounded as the car pulled away from the venue, the chaotic scene receding in the rearview mirror. She realized that her entire world had changed in a single night. A massive scandal had just exploded, dragging Michael's empire into the mud, but Amelia felt an odd sense of relief and empowerment. Her shoulders felt lighter, as though a crushing weight had finally been lifted. The next morning, every major paper and gossip site plastered Michael's scandal on their front pages. Social media was ablaze with clips from the gala, with hashtags like #SanchezScandal and #RitzRevelations trending for days. Investors began withdrawing from Michael's project, uneasy about sinking money into a developer whose personal life and ethics were so thoroughly discredited. Stock for his publicly traded holding company took a noticeable hit in the market. Amelia, meanwhile, hired additional legal counsel to handle the divorce, as well as the resulting media storm. Overnight, she became a figure of public sympathy, the pregnant wife who bravely exposed her cheating millionaire husband. Offers for exclusive interviews flooded in from talk shows and magazines, but she declined them all. She had no interest in monetizing her pain. She simply wanted to protect herself and her unborn child from further turmoil. Michael tried calling Amelia countless times, leaving voicemails that swung from apologetic to furious to desperate. He begged her to meet, to talk, to clarify. She refused every request, responding only through her legal team. Over the next week, rumors surfaced that Michael's side project near the Metropolitan Museum of Art would be scrapped entirely, because no investor wanted to associate with him anymore. In hushed circles, people murmured that Michael might face lawsuits not just from jilted investors, but from business partners who suspected financial improprieties. Then, in a development that caught Amelia by surprise, an internal audit of Michael's real estate firm unveiled a series of questionable transfers, unaccounted funds that seemed to bankroll Kiera's luxurious lifestyle. Regulatory authorities took notice, launching a formal investigation into whether Michael had used company assets for personal gain. The inquiry deepened, threatening Michael's entire empire. Kiera, for her part, found herself blacklisted by several brands she had deals with. Her follower count on social media plummeted as the public viewed her as a symbol of superficiality and betrayal. She released a teary-eyed apology video on YouTube, claiming she had been misled and that she felt horribly used. The reaction was largely mockery or scorn, with viewers pointing out how smug and carefree she had appeared in the leaked hotel footage. Amelia watched all of this unfold from a distance. She felt no triumph in seeing Michael's name dragged through the mud, especially since their child would one day learn of this scandal. But she also didn't regret her actions. She'd given him many chances to come clean, and he had chosen deceit at every turn. Her phone buzzed one evening as she was sitting alone in the penthouse she was already preparing to vacate. It was Michael. On impulse, she answered, her voice stiff. "Amelia, please," he began, sounding exhausted. "I'm so sorry. I can't even begin to." She cut him off. "You humiliated me, lied to me, planned to discard me. There's no apology that can mend that." His voice broke. "I never wanted it to go this far. I love you." Stop," Amelia said, tears threatening to spill. "Love doesn't do what you did. Don't you dare use that word with me now." She hung up, trembling. In that moment, she realized that while she was the aggrieved party, she also yearned to escape the cycle of hate and vengeance. She was carrying new life inside her, and she wanted her child to grow up free from the toxicity that had consumed her marriage. In the weeks that followed, Amelia took methodical steps to rebuild her life. She moved out of the luxurious penthouse into a smaller but cozy apartment on the Upper West Side, one that she could manage comfortably. She engaged an interior decorator, ironically financed partly by the settlement Michael's lawyers offered as initial spousal support. She wanted a fresh space with warm colors, a nursery painted in gentle creams and pastels, a place where her unborn child could thrive without the lingering shadows of betrayal. The divorce proceedings began in earnest. Buoyed by the incontrovertible evidence of Michael's adultery, Amelia's attorneys secured a favorable position. They aimed for fair alimony, child support, and a portion of Michael's assets that would ensure financial stability for Amelia and the baby. Michael's lawyers tried to bargain behind closed doors, hoping to salvage his public image by resolving the case quietly. Amelia held firm. She had no intention of punishing him unnecessarily, but she also demanded what was owed to her, especially given the way he had treated her. Meanwhile, the scandal swirling around Michael continued unabated. News outlets reported that several major real estate investors had filed separate lawsuits, alleging fraud, breach of contract, and misuse of funds. He tried to spin his downfall as a personal failing unrelated to his professional acumen, but the public wasn't buying it. The taint of the affair, combined with the revelations of financial misconduct, had tarnished his name. The board of directors at his company forced him to take an indefinite leave, effectively stripping him of control. Kiera all but vanished from the city's social circuit. Her desperate attempts to revive her influencer career fell flat. She posted an apology on Instagram, claiming she was focusing on mental health and personal growth, but the public had moved on to other scandals. She was replaced by countless new faces who offered less complicated forms of entertainment. Amelia spent her days preparing for the baby's arrival, attending prenatal classes, and leaning on Naomi's unwavering support. She also reconnected with old friends she'd lost touch with during the hectic years of Michael's rise to prominence. Their kindness and warmth helped her remember what true relationships were supposed to feel like: honesty, loyalty, compassion. One late afternoon, she sat on her new couch, flipping through baby name books. The child within her kicked, as if urging her on. She smiled, tears slipping free. The heartbreak of the last few months still weighed heavily, but she felt something new sprouting in its place: hope. Amelia's pregnancy reached its final weeks, and she immersed herself in the routines of prenatal care. She arranged a small baby shower, inviting only close friends. They gathered in her freshly decorated living room, bringing gifts of plush toys, baby blankets, and heartfelt wishes for a bright future. Naomi was there, beaming with pride. The atmosphere was warm, devoid of the pomp and show that once defined her life with Michael. For Amelia, it felt wonderfully real. Despite the legal battles still raging, Amelia maintained her composure. She rarely saw Michael in person. When they did meet, it was in the cold environment of a lawyer's office or a family court hearing. He had become thin, the stress of the ongoing scandal etched in every line on his face. There were times he tried to speak to her about the baby, about seeing the nursery or attending a prenatal appointment. She mostly refused, unsure if his remorse was genuine or born out of desperation. Eventually, word reached Amelia that Michael was exploring therapy on the advice of his lawyers and publicists. She shrugged it off. Whether he was truly seeking redemption or just aiming for a more sympathetic narrative made little difference. She was done being manipulated by his contrition. Then, one crisp autumn evening, the baby decided it was time. Amelia awoke to sharp contractions and an unmistakable realization that her labor had begun. She called Naomi, who rushed her to the hospital. Hours passed in a blur of pain, adrenaline, and the unwavering support of the medical team. Finally, close to dawn, Amelia gave birth to a baby boy, Nathaniel. The moment she heard his tiny cry, all her anguish melted into pure love. She held him against her chest, tears streaming down her face, whispering promises that she would protect him always. Naomi stood by, tears in her own eyes, capturing a few discreet photos of the newborn cradled in Amelia's arms. News of the birth reached Michael, who tried to come to the hospital. Amelia allowed him a brief visit under the watchful eye of Naomi. He walked into the room with a bouquet of yellow roses, eyes filled with an odd mix of sorrow and wonder. For a moment, time seemed to freeze as he saw his son for the first time. "He's beautiful," Michael murmured, tears threatening to spill. Amelia nodded, her own gaze locked on Nathaniel. She allowed Michael a few minutes to hold the baby. In that instant, seeing his trembling arms around their child, she could see a man stripped of arrogance and regretful beyond words. A flicker of sympathy moved through her, but it was not enough to erase the past. Nathaniel gurgled softly, oblivious to the tension in the room. When Michael tried to say something more, Amelia simply shook her head, indicating the moment was over. A nurse politely asked him to leave, citing Amelia's need for rest. Weeks turned into months. Amelia embraced motherhood wholeheartedly, cherishing every smile and coo from Nathaniel. She forged a small but loving community around her, including Naomi and a few trustworthy friends. That nurturing environment brought a sense of calm she hadn't felt in years. Her divorce from Michael was finalized, the settlement ensuring that Nathaniel's financial needs would be met. Michael also set up a trust fund for the child, perhaps a token attempt at redemption. Meanwhile, his legal woes continued. A series of corporate lawsuits drained his resources, forcing him to sell multiple properties, including the swanky penthouse Amelia once shared with him. The once praised real estate mogul saw his empire crumble piece by piece. Michael made sporadic attempts to request visitation, citing paternal rights. Amelia, with her lawyer's guidance, agreed to limited supervised visits, at least until the courts determined a formal custody arrangement. On those visits, Michael came looking worn and remorseful, reading children's books to Nathaniel or gently rocking him to sleep. Amelia observed from a distance, her heart a complicated swirl of pity, residual anger, and a maternal instinct to guard her child. One grey morning, a final wave of lawsuits hit Michael like a sledgehammer. Evidence emerged that he had used shell companies to funnel money into personal accounts for Kiera's penthouse and extravagant gifts. He was indicted on charges of fraud and embezzlement. Although his lawyers negotiated a plea deal that kept him out of prison, he was saddled with massive debts and community service requirements. The press covered his downfall extensively, describing him as the real estate prodigy who flew too close to the sun. Amelia read these headlines, feeling a lingering sadness for the man she once loved, but no regret for orchestrating the public exposure. He had dug his own grave with every lie and manipulation. Over time, as Nathaniel grew, Amelia found moments of genuine peace. Her new apartment was cozy, full of laughter and the soft glow of family life. She took on freelance design work, slowly building a reputation for creating comfortable, family-oriented interiors. Though the scandal had briefly made her a household name, she declined interviews and talk show appearances, letting her quiet competence speak louder than sensational headlines. Naomi remained her stalwart confidant. Over coffee one day, Naomi confided, "You know, I've seen so many cases of betrayal, but the way you handled it took guts. You were never vindictive, you were just determined to speak your truth." Amelia half smiled, reflecting on the whirlwind that had become her life. "I guess I learned that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself in the loudest way possible. Because if you don't, the world can bury you under its lies." They both watched Nathaniel chew on a plush toy, his big eyes curious about the world around him. In that moment, Amelia felt a spark of something close to contentment. She had survived heartbreak, humiliation, and upheaval. Now she was forging a new path, untainted by deception. The tangled web of deceit ended in a public downfall for Michael, but Amelia emerged stronger than ever. By daring to expose his betrayal, she found not just retribution, but also her own liberation. The path to healing was long and often painful, yet it led her to a life free from the shadows of lies. Surrounded by loving friends, she forged a bright future for herself and her child, a life defined by authenticity rather than pretense. Her story reminds us that sometimes we must confront the darkness head-on to protect what truly matters, even when it means risking everything. If this dramatic journey kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to show some support, like this video, share it with those who love a gripping tale, and subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for more stories filled with twists, turns, and hard-earned triumphs. Your engagement helps keep these powerful narratives alive, and you won't want to miss the next compelling episode.